Hey YouTube. Well, it's Friday the 14th and my wife wants me to plant some green beans. I have them in my pocket here, the seeds. I kept this handle to an old snow shovel that the shovel itself kind of broke or wore out or whatever. But anyway, what I want to do is I want to put a point on this. I'm going to use this to just plant the seeds. Well, that ought to be good enough. Yeah. So I'm gonna go and plant green beans for about 20 or 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then I'm gonna go over to the sawmill. It's Friday. I don't know if I said that already, but it's Friday and the weather's not too bad, but it's kind of cool out and we're getting a lot of wind, but the wind is coming from the north, so it's not going to get warm. Okay guys, so I've got the crane out of storage, and what I'm going to do here is I want to mark the center of it so that I can pretty much center this pin on that. Now this pin is in the center of this plate of where I have the two uprights here, but when I was welding this one, it warped a little bit to the side, which I should have known better, but it kind of closed. So it doesn't go on right, well, there it goes on. I guess I got to just bump it apart a little bit, but it's nice and tight on the bottom. The only thing is where I have the weld in the plates, the weld is sort of going to be in the way of the edge of this. So I want to trim just a little notch or an angle off of, you know, this white oak beam here, so that I can put that thing so that it's nice and centered on this. So just about something big enough for the weld to fit in. A little bigger is not going to hurt nothing. You could probably cut this with a saw, but I'm not getting the saw out. I don't think I'm going to need the saw, although I might when it comes to putting the rollers on. So I need to do this on both sides. And then I'm going to put this plate onto the bottom of this. I have 2 holes so that I can bolt it in here and 2 up here. The weight's mainly going to be down on this thing, and the rollers and all that are holding the crane straight, the weight of it is going to hold it in place. So these bolts that I put in here are not really to hold it in place, it's just to hold it centered on the Lazy Susan that I made. So I'll get back to you after I get that part done. Okay guys, so you saw me notch the edge of this. I did on both sides. It was very tight. I drove it on with a sledgehammer, and I've got 1 1/8 inches from one side to the plate, and I have the same 1 1/8 inches down on the bottom side here. So I'm going to go ahead and put some lag bolts in there, and that should hold that without a problem, both sides. And then I'm going to go on to the rollers. Let me go grab a roller. Now these rollers were sitting out in the rain. It's not going to matter much, but okay, my battery went dead. I had to replace it for today. Alright, so anyway, what I was saying is the roller's a little bit rusty, which it's not hurting the curling of it or anything. But what I need here now is I need the top of the roller from here to be no more than 29 inches. So this is where this roller will be, and it'll be rolling around the pipe. So what I want to do here, the way I have these made, when you have an 8-inch square, it's the reverse of the cant. So we have an 8-inch square, but the pipe is 13 inches. So I came up far enough with the roller. If you were to check this, the roller looks a lot rougher than what I actually have it made. It's made pretty accurately. It's about 2.5 inches, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, that would be 13 inches wide. So it's going to be very snug when I go to fit it in there. Now, 3 of the rollers, the one that's on this side, the side facing the jib part of the crane, and the opposite side, are made to be 13. The one in the back is a little bit looser because I figured I can adjust that one to make the crane, if it leans that way, I can adjust it one way or the other. But anyway, that's where that has to go. Let me just put that up a little further. 29 is right there. So that's basically where they're going to go. So I'm going to lag bolt this on first, and then I'll go after the rollers. Alright, so I have a drill bit here that's smaller than the actual threaded part of the lag bolt, and it's a little bit short, so I don't want to drill it in all the way. I only want to go in maybe, I don't know, maybe 1.5 inches. So you figure this plate here, so that should be good. Let's see here. Now, like I say, these lag bolts that I'm putting in here are not doing anything structurally. All they're doing is holding this plate to the bottom of this beam, which they should be able to do that without any trouble. Need a bigger ratchet. Got this. Also, this bottom here is a fairly flat cut. I mean, it's really close. I had a square on it. You could barely see any light through the square, so it should be close enough that I can shim the rollers to make this thing straight. Surprisingly, the logs stayed nice and straight through the winter time. I had it setting over there. It was outside. I had a board underneath this end, the jib end, and the other end of the boom, just to make sure that it wasn't gonna be like offset or twist during the winter time, and it didn't. It stayed nice and straight. I'll get back to you after I have both bolts in here. Okay, so this thing is on there the way I figured. The only thing that's bothering me about this at the moment is this 29 inches looks pretty low. I would have rather if it was up here somewhere, but I've already got that piece welded into that pipe. So it is what it is, I suppose. We'll see. Now these bolts in here, again, these aren't really structural. There's no weight going to be on this crane pushing this up or down. All it's doing is pushing it against the beam and against the pipe. So, you know, I could have put more bolts in here if I thought I needed to, or I could have even drilled all the way through and hooked two of them together from one side to the other, but I don't see a need for it. The other thing I want to do is put an aircraft nut on here with a plastic locking thing so I don't have to worry about it. And I want to put the nut on the bottom rather than the way I have this, in case the nut should fall off the roller, it'll still stay in place. I'll get back to you after I put more of it on there. Okay, I got the back one, this, the front one. I got to get the other side one on. I'm going to flip this thing over with the backhoe then to do that. I'm just putting a little bit of oil onto these bolts so that it's smooth, like lubrication on there. I got some of this stuff here. It's called Ultra Slick. It doesn't matter what you use, any kind of oil would probably work for this. That's always handy, so I just grabbed that. It will also stop the rollers from getting rusty. And I plan on filling that whole cavity with hydraulic oil, just to keep this stuff oiled in there. I want to keep the beam here the size it is. I don't want it to shrink anymore, and I think that putting oil in there will help it to stay that way. Okay guys, well, I got the parts onto that thing that I needed to put on. So now all it is a matter of getting the pipe poured into the ground and the hole dug, which I'm still not going to do because they're calling for rain for the next 2 days. So I need to hold off on that until we're going to get rain, no rain for at least a week. Hey guys, so I have the crane set up over there. I have the piece of pipe that goes in the hole right here. And as soon as I dig that and decide when I'm going to pour it, I'll take care of that. I got a pine log on here that's not exactly the best log you could want. You can see it goes up there at the end. This one I'm going to definitely cut down to 8 feet because it's just not going to, it'll goof me up too much to try and salvage that little end, and I need 8-footers anyway, 2x4s. So I figured I'd take a couple minutes and answer some questions that I get every now and then. And this way here, maybe you can understand some of the things that I do. So all the high-tech gadgets and stuff, I've already had them, and I'm not interested in having a whole crap load of them again. And when I sold my business, it took me about 6 years to sell everything off. I decided I wasn't going to get into anything too big. But lo and behold, I've been working construction, and you can laugh at this if you want. My dad had me mixing wood fiber plaster for him so he could make artificial fireplaces when I was 8 years old. So I was using a hoe with the 2 holes in it, mixing in a mud pan, plaster, so that he could plaster over some sheetrock that he put up in order to be able to build these fireplaces. So all the way through my life, it's always been construction. And the best time of my life was when I started in heavy construction. And I started the summer that I was 15 years old. When I was 15 years old, I went to work with my dad. I was building he was building a sanitary sewer line, and I was in a ditch 22 feet deep. And at the time we beat the ditch, there was no trench boxes, nothing for safety except a hard hat, which very seldom the guys wore, and that was about it. And never had any problems with anything like that my whole construction career. Now I will say this, one of the things that I enjoyed, and I used to get up early in the morning and go to work early because I loved it. I mean, I loved it so much I can't describe to you how much I loved it. I still love it. And if I wouldn't have gotten diabetes and, you know, decided, and with the kids and moving and my wife and I growing old, I would have stayed in it. But it just gets to a point where you had too much, especially some of the customers can drive you nuts. But anyway, my favorite thing was in the morning, that when I got to the construction job, the trackhoe operator used to start an old Inslee backhoe, trackhoe, with a Detroit diesel in it. And I could smell that thing from my car when he would start it in the morning. And hearing the governor, it would sound like this. It would go, "Rrr, rrr, 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 rrr." I loved that. I loved the sound, I loved the smell, and I couldn't wait to get in the ditch and start laying pipe. I loved it. And from that, we went from that to pouring concrete to, I went into building houses, and you know, my dad helped me along the way with different things. And I got to tell you, I miss it to this day. So when I start my backhoe and I smell the diesel exhaust and I hear the diesel engine, this is music to me. I don't smoke. I never drank. I don't waste any money for anything. My pleasure is to hear that diesel motor running and to smell the diesel fuel. I don't care if you're from California or where you're from. I don't care what your personal preferences are. That is what my enjoyment is. I love it. And the more work I do, the harder the labor is, as long as I can handle it at my age. Now there's some stuff I cannot handle. I'm in love with them. Not that I was a laborer all my life, because I wasn't. But I just love doing work. So when I get comments about, you know, you should do this to make it easier or that to make it easier, yes, there's a million different things I can do to make it easy. Easy's not my game. It's not what I'm after. I'm after to get the job done the best way I can with what I have. And I don't want to have to spend a lot of money on getting more stuff, okay? So that's how I look at things. And one of the other things that that's my personal thing, and why you hear my stuff running. No matter what I have, I let it run, because why should I try to start something from cold? Everybody knows a cold engine is the worst time to start using it. So it's better if it's warmed up. Anybody who works on engines knows this, okay? And once you start a diesel, especially trackhoes, bulldozers, we would start D8s in the morning as well as scrapers, and they would run non-stop for 12 straight hours. Whether we took lunch or worked through lunch, it didn't matter. They would run non-stop. So that's how it worked. Same thing with little motors. I took notice that on all of the YouTube things, everybody always complains about chainsaws and welders. Why people have a fetish about, oh, you're welding wrong. No matter who the welder is, no matter how good he does, no matter if what he welds doesn't break, or no matter how you operate a chainsaw, somebody always has to complain about it. And I have to laugh because it's so stupid most cases. Listen, I have my Stihl chainsaw here. Let me explain this to you. I bought the smallest chainsaw Stihl has. It's $179 out the door, okay? This chainsaw does everything I want it to do. Does it do it like I'm cutting wood at the freaking Olympics? No, it doesn't. And it has a smaller chain, a smaller bar, and everything else on it is smaller. But I'm 65, okay? I don't want 15 pounds of chainsaw. I don't even know what this weighs, but whatever it is, it's just about right for me. But here's what I'll tell you about this chainsaw. You can put this, turn the chainsaw to on position, and you can pull this thing all day long, and it's not going to start. But here's what it does do, and I can almost guarantee you that. Now I just took this, let me see if, yeah, there's gas in it. I just took it out of the shed. You got to put it on choke, and you got to pull it 5 times. Okay, 5 times. Then you put it on regular run, and it stays running. The other day when you saw it slowing down, because it had gotten some water on it from rain. I left it sitting in the rain when I was working one day, and it didn't want to stay idling. Normally it stays idling just like you hear them. But no matter what day it is, I don't care if it's 5 degrees below zero, 10 degrees below zero, or it's 60. When I walk out here and I start this chainsaw, no matter where I am or what I'm doing, it takes 5 pulls on choke, 3 pulls on the other one, and it starts up and stays running all day long. You can change all, you can run out of gas. You might have to choke it once or twice to get it to go, but it stays running. There's no push bulb on this thing, but I'll tell you what, I love this chainsaw. It's reliable because from the very start, it took 5 pulls to start it choked, 3 pulls to start it on the other. I know that in 8 easy pulls this thing will go, okay? So the other day when you saw it not wanting to run, it was because I had let it get wet, and it was cold out. It was only like in the low 40s. So sometimes it doesn't idle when it's real cold out. You got to let it warm up. And if you watch some of the YouTube videos about chainsaw guys who repair them, they'll tell you, don't start the chainsaw, you know, pull the throttle on full and start cutting with it. Give it a chance to warm up a little bit. That's the same thing with my chipper, the same thing with the sawmill, the backhoe, your car, your truck. If you start a pickup truck in the morning and you're doing 65 miles an hour 2 minutes after you start the truck, all you're doing is beating the crap out of the motor. What happens is the oil, there's only like a 1/1000th or less clearance in the main bearings and in the connecting rod bearings. When you start up the motor, oil is actually a little bit thick, okay? So you start it, and when you start it, you're forcing, the oil pump's forcing this oil to go into this, you know, little space. Sometimes it may or may not get there, okay? And the hotter oil gets today, the thinner it gets, because that's, or the thicker it's supposed to get, thicker actually, because that's what the weight is about. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm sure there's a lot of chemists out there who know about more than I do with motor oil. But I've been working around engines all my life because of all the equipment that I owned, and I owned a lot of it. So the thing is you need to warm stuff up, keep it warm, let it run. In the morning when I first start the Ford up, and this is like with any tractor almost, or any big machine, if you don't let the oils get into the transmission, get into the rear ends, you know, into the rear end, or rear ends if it's 4-wheel drive, or wherever it has to go, it's not going to want to go right away. You got to let it warm up a little, okay? In fact, people who worked for me knew that if they were equipment operators, they had to be to work a half hour early to oil a machine, grease a machine, check out whatever, and have it running by the time 7 o'clock came, so that at 7 o'clock the teeth were in the dirt and we were digging, because that's how I operated. So I just wanted to tell, clear a couple things up about it. This is a very good chainsaw, MS 170, smallest chainsaw still makes. I'm gonna buy another one this year, just for the sake of having one that I don't have to carry this one all over the place. I have three other chainsaws in my shed. I have one really small Homelite that was made back in the 70s. That's too small. It doesn't even cut branches. But I have two other ones that can easily cut this, but they are so freaking heavy. They're so hard to start. I have no fetish about the brand. I don't care what brand you use. When I was a kid, the best saw that people used was called a Partner. That's what we had. They worked really well. Never even heard of a Still or Steel, whatever you call them, until after years later. But Partner was the saw to have, and we liked. They ran good, never had trouble with them. Could get parts and everything else. So it doesn't matter to me what brand saw you use. So I don't really care. I mean, you can make comments about maybe you should get this kind of saw or that kind of saw. Unless it's lightweight and can do what this saw has done. This saw has cut up every single tree in one way or another that you've seen come to the property. Either I trim it, or I cut them down, or shorten them up, or cut them in two. It still does the job. It's not the fastest chainsaw. It doesn't take out the most amount of meat. But the chains are cheap. They're 15 bucks for a chain. I sharpen my own chains, so I save the money there. It doesn't have anything to do with the chainsaw. I can go any day of the week and buy a $500 chainsaw or a $1,900 chainsaw. It doesn't matter. I don't want the weight. I don't need a 30-inch bar on my chainsaw, okay? I don't even want to be bothered with that. So anyway, I thought maybe you'd like to know that's why I have what I have. I don't know how else to explain it to you. So that's basically what took place in my life. It's why I like and why I do what I do, okay? And until I find something else personally that would maybe be a better way, I'll listen to the comments. I read a lot of comments. A lot of guys have some good ideas. I got a comment the other day about putting a hook on each side of the bucket and having two grapples hanging down and pick logs up like that. That is not a bad comment, and that isn't a bad idea. My problem is I usually come into the mill on an angle, okay? Now, I could cut these couple trees down and come straight in, but it's not a big deal. I don't mind getting in and out of the machine. I mean, yes, it's tiring, and yes, when you get older, it's harder to do it, but at least it keeps me in shape, and that's all I'm concerned about. And I'm not in the best of shape, but I'm not in the worst of shape either. There's a lot of people in worse shape than I am, and that's just the way it is. This log came from a contractor. You can tell by how much of the branch he left on there. Anyway, I'm going to cut this thing up, and I'll get you back here once I start cutting the 2x4s out of it. Okay guys, so I made my first cut. I cut the two ends off on it, and I made my first cut on the saw. And it dawned on me that after cutting that white oak, all those 200 or 100 strips, I need to sharpen my blade. So let me show you what happened. Bring the camera over here so you can see just how bad this is. And it's only because the blade is dull. See the gap there? Another gap. Another gap. And you can see that it gets gaps near, like in between the limbs from here up. Like if I start right in there, it's fairly straight, but where the limbs are on the pine trees that grow like across from one another, you can see that this is pretty bad. Look at that there. So all this needs is either a new blade or a sharpening. So what I'm going to do is sharpen this blade. I forgot about it. When I told myself that I was going to have to sharpen the blade after cutting that white oak in so many pieces, but I had forgotten. But I sure know now. So I'll sharpen that and then I'll get back to you. Alright, so I just finished sharpening that blade. I didn't make a cut yet, but I'll make a cut in now and then we'll take a look at how it came out. Now you can see the difference there. Major difference. Now knots still can goof you up a little bit, but that's a major difference there between when the blade was dull and now that it's sharp. I'll be getting a couple of 2x4s out of here, not many though. Okay guys, we're getting some nice straight cuts here now that the saw blade's been sharpened. I rolled the log over. I think I can get an 8-inch cant out of this. It's going to be close. I might be able to pull, if I can get an 8-inch can out of it, I could get a maybe 6 2x4s, but I don't know, because the other way it's, I think it's only 6 inches, so it's going to be a tough one to get this to do what I want it to do. But it doesn't matter, a couple 2x4s, it's the end of the day, it's almost 7 o'clock already because I was busy doing other stuff today. But I want to finish this up. I'm going to get 6 2x4s out of this. So I'm going to clean up here and call it a day. We got our green beans in today, got the train worked on, cut a little bit of wood. The guy came to pick up the steaks, so everything was good, everything worked out good. Have a good one, my friends.